This is the DJI Ronin 4 Pro. It is a 3-axis camera stabilization gimbal. And so what it allows you to do is run full tilt after somebody and have a reasonably steady shot while you're doing it, although it still is difficult to keep somebody in frame while you're chasing them. So there's a couple of follow modes. This is pan only mode. So I can pan the camera around and it will basically go where I tell it in pan. But if I start doing this, it's going to ignore that motion and keep that camera perfectly horizontal. Now if I do pan tilt follow, I can tilt the camera down and it will let me do that, but it is stabilizing my shot, so it's trying to keep it nice and smooth. And you can control the speed at which it follows your pointing. But if I start rolling, it will prevent the camera from rolling. And then of course, you can do full first-person view where this guy will follow exactly what you do. And so if you roll the camera, it will allow the camera to roll. So you can set up the joystick to control the camera's zoom or focus, or you can have it control the head like this. Now, if I double click, it's going to recenter everything. And those of you who like that obscene vertical format, you'll be happy to know that this camera mounting plate can unclip and clip on again vertically to orient the camera vertically in about 10 seconds. And if I triple click, I get into selfie mode where it turns around and takes a picture of me. Now, if I'm pointing the camera at something and I hold the trigger down, it gimbal locks. And that means I can move this handle around pretty much however I want, and it's going to stay pointing at whatever I pointed it at. So like I can do this, and it basically keeps pointing at the moon. So the default package comes with the handle and this secondary handle or stand to set it down with. It has, of course, the main gimbal arm here, and depending on your camera, you may have to purchase an accessory cable. So it comes with a USB-C to USB-C cable. If you have an older camera that has a Sony style plug or a micro USB plug, you may have to pay 20 or 30 bucks to get the camera cable that'll work for your particular camera. Now, in addition to handheld use, you can mount this guy permanently and just use it as a camera gimbal with the joystick. You can also connect to it with a phone app and use your phone to control it. If you're doing photography with it, there's some nice panorama modes where you tell it your lens length and it will automatically take pictures 30% overlapping all around, and you can say how big of a panorama you want. And so it'll do basically a perfect panorama shot, or even a full 360 photosphere type shot. But the primary purpose of this is for handheld videography to make your shot steady, and it does a pretty darn good job of that. So this is the RS4 Pro. It has a 10-pound payload, costs about $850. If you only need a 6.5-pound payload, you can do the RS4 without the Pro on it, and that's significantly cheaper. So I've been very happy with the hardware here. This is the Pro model. It has carbon fiber for the arms. It has very nice lock mechanisms for clipping and unclipping things and balancing the camera. It's very easy to use, and it does a very good job stabilizing your camera while you're walking around handheld. I have only 2 gripes about it. The first is, you are required to register this with the DJI account. And some of this is for warranty registration purposes, but they basically pop up a message when you first turn it on that says, hey, you're required to register. You can use it up to 5 times before you register, and then it shuts down. So you have to install the DJI phone app on your Android or iOS app. And if you're on Android, you don't get this from the Google Play Store. You have to download it directly from their website and sideload it onto your phone. And so if you're security conscious, that can make your skin crawl a little bit. I personally used a separate phone that's not my main phone to install the app and register this. Now, once I've registered it and it did the firmware update, it doesn't need the phone to work. But the phone app does have some nice features. You can program in camera tracks just a little bit easier than using the interface here.
It'll start recording at your first waypoint, and then after it stayed there for the amount of time you told it to stay there, it'll move to the next waypoint. It'll stay there for a certain amount of time, and then it'll move to the next waypoint and so forth. So you can set up tracking shots with this guy.
And you can use your phone with the accelerometer to control the camera. So you can remote control the gimbal with your phone if you needed to. So the other thing that was just slightly annoying is that it comes with a USB-C to USB-C cable. And my camera's old. It doesn't have a USB-C port. It has two ports. It has a Sony multi-port connector and a micro USB connector. And so if I put in a USB-C to micro USB connector, I can control the camera aperture and shutter with this knob up here. And with the red button, I can start and stop video. And that's pretty much all you need to do. But if I want to take pictures with the camera, so say I want to do it for a panorama mode where it's going to take a picture in multiple different locations in a grid, I can't use this cable. I have to use the Sony multi-connect cable. And so that costs an extra 30 bucks with shipping. So I've bought that cable, and when I get here, I'll be able to take pictures with this. Now, the only downside of that cable is it will let you do video recording, start, stop, and pictures, but it will not let you control the shutter and aperture with the knob. And of the two, I want to be able to take pictures more than I want to be able to control the shutter and the aperture. But it's kind of one of these things where, like, yeah, if I had a slightly newer camera, one cable would probably do everything. But as it is, I needed to pay a little extra for that cable. If you go to their website and tell it what camera you have, it'll tell you exactly what cable you're going to need and if it's included in the kit or not. But keep in mind that depending on your camera, you may need to provide your own cable. Now, there's also lots of accessories you can get. So, for example, there's two motors you can buy that will control the focus and zoom, and so you can control focus and zoom programmatically from down here using usually the joystick for zoom and this knob here for focus. And so if you need to control zoom and focus programmatically or from down here and you're not using an autofocus, there's extra add-ons you can get for that. They also have a LiDAR add-on that will do LiDAR autofocus for you. So there's lots of extra things you can add here for a real professional setup. But just the basic setup works quite well for image stabilization.